if you're growing, you're probably experiencing some pain, right? So if you're feeling comfortable, you're probably not growing.
Right.
Let's think about the business. Let's take a breath. That change, I think, is going to allow us to now 10x the business over the next 10 years.
Absolutely. People ask, like, how did you do this? How do you do that? It's being the game, right? It's not you just become super successful in a couple weeks or a year. I mean, between myself, you, and Glenn, we almost probably have 40 years of experience in real estate.
Cleveland last year was ranked the #1 market in the country among all major metros for median rent growth. 7.4% growth. The average across the United States was only 3.3%.
Duplexes back in 19 in Brooklyn, and I don't think I paid more than $55,000 for 4 units. A good leader, a good entrepreneur it's okay to make mistakes, just don't do it again.
All right, and so let's talk. It's been a year since we've really recorded content and pushed the podcast out. I think the last one we did was April 7th of 2024. And the last year or so, we've focused a lot of our time and attention on building our portfolio, exited a few buildings, refinanced a big building. There's been a lot that's been going on. So people are probably wondering, like, why haven't these guys pushed out a podcast in over a year? We decided, it was last April 7th of 2024, that we were just gonna take a pause, regroup, and we decided to kind of merge one of our education companies into Freeland, and then start to add content from our whole team. You, Glenn, Dave, Roberto, Jason. We hired Jason, our COO, who's taken over for property management. There's been a lot happening for the past year. So, Tyler, from your perspective, like, what are some of the highlights and maybe some of the lowlights or some of the challenges that you've kind of seen in the last year that we've really focused on, working on and optimizing?
Yeah, you said in April of last year we took a pause. I think it's important that we didn't, when people hear that, they might say we paused the business, but we actually just leveled up, right? So we said, hey, we want to level up our business so much that we need to pause one sector of our business to really scale.
Yeah, thank God we paused the podcast because we have a lot going on.
Now we have so much awesome stuff to tell people about. We've learned a ton. Over the last year, like you said, we've probably doubled our staffing. We really focused on what markets we are going to, be our target markets. We optimize our operations. We increase our efficiency on our construction. I'm focused more on acquisitions and revenue. You're jumping in the same thing with me now, so we're kind of spearheading a lot of the same stuff, and our lanes now are just really determined and direct on what we need to do. So some of the challenges that we ran into is just every business is growing pains, in my opinion. When you grow, there's pain. If you're not feeling pain, you're not growing.
That's right.
So for us, I think that we're always going to be growing in this type of business. So I'm excited to kick off our reunion of the podcast and kind of tell everybody about it.
Yeah. So there's a couple things you mentioned there, like, we should unpack. So first thing you mentioned, which stands out to me, is like, if you're growing, you're probably experiencing some pain, right? So if you're feeling comfortable, you're probably not growing.
Right.
So when you hear that and you think about growth is going to mean pain, it's going to mean challenges, it's going to mean obstacles, but it also means growth, whether it's personal growth, relationship growth, development growth, the company is growing, versus comfort. I think a lot of people that are not entrepreneurs or that are new entrepreneurs, they think there's this nirvana that's going to come where I've built this amazing business and the business is now just a cash machine. It's creating all kind of cash flow and equity, and I'm done and I can just retire to an island somewhere. You and I both know that that's not reality.
No, it's not. It's not reality. And like, entrepreneurship is definitely not for everybody at all. It's not easy. It's super rewarding. And sometimes when you're building a business and you're really growing, you're like, hey, I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And when I start thinking that, I love that, because then I know we're about to have a massive breakthrough. And if you look at when you and I partnered, or really when, we kind of started working together back in 17, 18, the pillars of things that we've went through over the last, decade or so has just been incredible. One thing I think with our partnership and our partner Glenn is we've overcame so much in the last decade that I would think a lot of people would have just given up. For us, we've taken that opportunity, and now, over this last year, we're really excited to share some of the stuff.
Yeah, I read that book by Ray Dalio, right? Who runs the largest hedge fund in the world. The name of the book skips my mind right now, but it's sitting on my desk at home. I listened to the whole book. I read through it while I was listening to it. And he said something I'll never forget. He talked about how many times he almost got DQ'd. Like he almost got knocked out of business, right? Early on with his hedge fund, they made a couple investment mistakes. And he said entrepreneurship and leadership is literally about the journey and just making sure you never get DQ'd, right? You never get knocked out permanently. And we've certainly had some amazing roller coaster ups and downs, but the downs have never knocked us out, right? And now you get to the point where the business is generating $15 million a year roughly in revenue from all the rent. And now it's at a point of stabilized enough that we can afford really good staff, really good people that are allowing us to get into different lanes, right? So that sticks out to me. One of the things you mentioned too, T, at the beginning was how we switch the lanes. So maybe talk for a second about the business structure. I think this is a big deal. This is one of the reasons why we took the pause from podcasting, was to bring Jason in. But we decided to take this approach of front of the house, back of the house, right? And every successful business I've been involved in several, has had a partner or a leader front of the house, and then a partner or a leader back of the house. And they basically said, I'm gonna run that. And then it kind of filtered in with the rest of the team and kind of divided that into two things. Somebody to drive the front, which is obviously podcasting, marketing, sales, recruiting capital, and then back of the house, things like property management, construction, finance, and accounting. Maybe talk about that shift, because I think that is what's that change, which came from sitting back, thinking about the business, thinking about what do we need to change. Let's stop the podcasting for a minute. Let's think about the business. Let's take a breath. That change, I think, is going to what's allow us to now 10x the business over the next 10 years.
Absolutely. So in entrepreneurship, you when you have partners, you own a company, you're running a company, you make decisions to lead the company in a specific way. And at the time, you don't know if it's the right decision or the wrong decision, but that's the thing as an entrepreneur, you take those risks. So the reason why we did this is we realized, like, hey, we made a calculated decision that, hey, are we going to maintain or are we going to grow? And we were going to grow. And what we were doing worked phenomenal to where it got us, but it's not going to work to where it's going to get us.
Yeah.
So if we talk about front of the house of the business, I've been in sales, I'm a salesperson, you're a salesperson. Historically in the company, I was in the front and the back of the house. So we all kind of were, right? So now with us focusing on just the front, you and I, the front is, looking at acquisitions, doing everything that we were doing, but now like even leveling up and sharing more about what we're going to be doing with the podcast and the media stuff, where, to be honest with you, I wasn't as much involved at that time, and you weren't as much involved in the acquisition aspect of it. Now you're just involved. So now we're seeing that what we focus on, we're going to find. And the back of the house now for us is we just have to trust the back of the house is going to take our ideas and run with it. Yeah. So again, it's entrepreneurship and it's growing, and I think right now it's working really, really well. We have some A players within our company, and you got to invest within the company to really grow. So for us, I feel we're in a really good spot to trust our employees to really take us to the next level, so we can focus on the front of the business. We can bring in the units that we're looking for, and right now, to be honest with you, a reason why we also made this decision is because the market changed. It's a little bit harder, right? Before I would say I'd look at, 500, 600 units to find two, right? It's kind of crazy. I looked at 3,000 apartments last quarter, like in 3 months, about 3,000 apartments to find one deal, 72 units. So my effort is like 10x just to get less. So therefore, like,
the market's kind of confused, right?
Yeah.
Like between interest rates, inflation, what sellers and buyers are willing to pay, it's very different than it was in 2020, 2021. Back then, it was just like, everybody wants to buy apartments, interest rates are low, we're just gonna throw it on the market, it's gonna get bid up, and whatever they pay, because the cost of capital was so cheap.
Yeah, we're dodging multiple bullets right now when it comes to the market, right? You're dealing with sellers that think their values are, their buildings are worth more than they are. Interest rates constantly fluctuating, which obviously you have to be more creative debt structuring. And then, things like insurance that are changing, kind of pretty much everything. So it does, not everybody can do what we do. Maybe in 19, there was more people that entered the market because they could, but now that's where we're really separate ourselves is we really mastered what we're focusing on our target markets, and that's why we need to set up the front and the back of the house.
Yeah. So there's a lot there that we could talk about for sure. There's a lot there to unpack, and we're going to have to probably follow up with a bunch of episodes and kind of, but so let's pick a few of these things to hone in on. So doesn't it feel like to me, since we started this kind of front of the house, back of the house concept, right, where you used to be involved in acquisitions, but you were also in asset management.
Yep.
And now we're trying to continue to focus on you just doing more and more and more acquisitions, less and less and less asset management. So your focus, your mental and emotional energy is more on revenue and acquisitions. And so you're starting to think through this, at least this is how I feel. I'm starting to find things subconsciously like people, staff, software, different ways to optimize the front of the house, because that's where you and I are focused, versus being pulled into the back of the business. And we're still helping our back of the house team, but they know that's where their focus is. So they're finding things like software people, staff, they're interviewing, we're hiring a staff accountant, we're hiring an asset manager, we're hiring help with construction, because they're focused on the back of the house. So that mental energy, so new entrepreneurs, you know how it is, like that $0 to $5 million mark, you've got to do everything. So you've got your hands in everything. I remember Kevin O'Leary telling me at one of our events, we were back in the green room, and he said, look, the first 5 million is all muscle. The next 10 million is about the team. Which is exactly where we are, right? We're at 15 million. That next 10 million is really all about the systems that the team runs.
Yep.
And that's the phase that we're getting to. So there's a little bit there to talk about, but first what about like the mental energy? Just focused on less things and being really good at the front of the house versus being spread so thin.
Yeah, I mean, the mental energy is, what's great about it is what I'm focused on now is what I loved about the business, right? So the mental energy, now it's about filling the gaps. I was so used to doing the back of the house of the business. Now it's rewiring my mind to focus simply just on the front end of the business, allowing myself to get out more in the market, network. We're sponsoring a lot of local events. We're going to a lot of networking and meetups. We're just getting out in the industry more than I wasn't able to, and you weren't really able to as well. So mental wise, my focus is just getting out, looking at every type of deal, meeting people, walking thousands and thousands of units. I think this year I'll probably walk over 10,000 apartments.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like not unrealistic, considering the first quarter I probably exceeded 3,000 units.
Yeah.
So.
And like think about all the things you're learning about the market.
Yeah.
You're learning about deals. You're learning about brokers and sellers, because you're spending all that physical and mental energy just on that one thing.
Yep.
Right. So the market research that you're inherently doing subconsciously, because you're walking this building, you're walking that building, you're talking to this seller, you're learning about sellers. Like there's some sellers that we learned some things about that nobody else probably knows, because it's kind of a small community, and a lot of it doesn't get out to the public.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's other properties, I would say, not even deal structures, this type of acquisitions that we didn't have the opportunity to buy in the past. And it's not because we didn't have the opportunity, it's because the market wasn't serving that type of opportunity up. Where we've looked at this, instead of being like, oh, I don't know how to do this, we massage these type of deals, and we got a nice deal right now that we're in the process of buying. And that deal took 4 or 5 months to kind of get it through the PSA status. And look, here we are, right? So it's taken
And the 3 or 4 years before that of the relationship with the broker and even knowing the sellers and following that deal.
Yeah, I mean, people ask like, how did you do this? How do you do that? It's being in the game, right? It's not a, you just become super successful in a couple weeks or a year. I mean, between myself, you and Glenn, I mean, we almost probably have 40 years of experience in real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unique in entirety. So that's how the things happen, right? Just being in the game, you're gonna find these opportunities, being open, taking feedback, and then just being willing to look at stuff a little bit differently to kind of find the right thing to fit the model with your team.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think to unpack here is one of the decisions that we made in the past year, front of the house, back of the house, was to still continue to dial in the market. Like, what market are we really going to focus on? And even a couple of years ago, when COVID hit, we decided to say, hey, we're not going to co-syndicate, we're not going to co-GP in other markets like Georgia or Houston or wherever. Now we decided to come into Ohio, right? Just Ohio only back in 2020. And we decided to go full bore, no longer be half pregnant with apartments and lending and private lending and everything else. We're going to be just apartments and then just Ohio. And then even in the last year, we've niched that down even further to say, we're really going to focus only on this kind of west side of Cleveland, down south, a couple markets on the east side because we have important staff and leadership over on the east side. And then really that northern part of Columbus. So again, maybe comment on that evolution a little bit, and how has that helped us and helped you really dial in like those relationships and looking at those deals and those streets, underwriting deals, and not being even pulled like even into Dayton or Cincinnati or Toledo or even Akron, Canton like we used to. How has niching down really allowed you to even more, be more focused and more dominate the markets that we're in?
Yeah, it's like building a house brick by brick, right? When we first started, buying real estate, we were spread out, but we were still in Ohio. So again,
went to see deals in Cincinnati. You were driving to Dayton,
Pittsburgh. I mean, pretty much everywhere. Florida. Even up to a year and a half ago, I was walking a property in St. Pete, a 200-unit building. But no, how it works really is being in the market. We kind of owned a little bit of everything within an hour or so of Cleveland. And what we found organically as we built the business is just being able to scale and having our team not have to travel all around. Anything that we buy, there's something next to it that can be accomplished the same day with just a couple minute drive away. So for us, we're focused on the west side of Cleveland and suburbs down the interstates and stuff like that. And then we do have a building out that's a little bit farther in Worcester, right? But that was a calculated purchase.
And I'm super excited about that.
Yeah. So, but we're not just, there's a lot of deals that we looked in Columbus that were great that we decided to pass on for whichever reason. But you gotta like have your business operating in one target market and then strategically kind of jump into another market, but don't like dive in a full blow. Find something that works out there and then you kind of grow within that area. So in 10 years when we're talking, we might have 5 or 6 little silos of units, but it's still gonna be strategically, operational, like efficient because of what we're buying. So I mean,
we entered Worcester, right? That was kind of a calculated decision. We're going to enter Worcester, which is 45 minutes to an hour from here. It's in our market, but it's a little bit of an outlier.
It is.
So you say, okay, we're going to enter that market, but do we want to continue to enter that market after that? Do we want to build a whole portfolio there? Right? So that's sort of that maturity, I think, in leadership and entrepreneurship is, we're not just going to be like shiny object, let's go flip that house.
It's hard for us, right? That's hard for you and
the shiny object, let's go buy that building, oh my God. It's like, well, do we want to buy that building and then do we also, right, the follow-up question, which is even more important for a successful entrepreneur is, do I want to enter that market and then be in that market forever?
Right.
And build a portfolio in that market.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing to kind of relate to that is like, let's talk about Akron, right? We had a smaller multi out there. One of our smaller first deals that we did maybe 5 years ago.
It was actually a perfect deal. We bought it, renovated it, tenanted it, sold it,
right?
Made 150, 200 grand in a few months.
Yeah, but I learned that market and I was like, it's not a bad, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad market, it's just not our market, right? And what I mean by that is,
That's a good point.
I can't really explain, I'm not a fan of that market. I don't know what it is, maybe it's just where the materials come in from, getting our team out there, and all this stuff kind of goes into play, but we sold that, and we got out of that. But at one point, all I was looking at, that it was that area, and then out in Maple, right? We had one in Maple and then in Akron. Talk about like opposites in a way, like that's where we were at. So, and then we bought one in Cleveland, and then what we realized is how we operate, where our staffing is at, this was a target market for us.
Yeah, and I think it's been important even to see, like in the last year, we've sold off a building or two, refinanced a few buildings, a couple really big ones. But now everything has this concept. Every decision that we make has this concept that it has to be near the network, near net. And Glenn sort of mentioned that, pioneered that concept. And so now it's about whether it's acquisition of a building, whether it's an acquisition of laundry. We have a lot of laundry machines, third-party construction, filming things like with Alex, our it's helping us with our shorts and reels and podcast production. Everything's so much easier because it's all near the network. And I think this is also a story that we're able to tell so much more passionately and confidently to our limited partners, our investors, and even our coaching students, because we're going to stay in this network and everything's going to feed each other. Acquisitions, construction, laundry, coaching, video recording, everything's right there, versus like you talked about looking at a building in St. Pete. So making that decision and again stepping away from podcasting for the past year has allowed us to make that decision. And now we feel like, okay, there's this vacuum of all these older owners that are exiting the market. These guys are 60 to 80 years old and they built these amazing portfolios. They're either not buying or they're exiting the market. A couple of them got in trouble. So there's this vacuum, right, of younger owners like us that are going to be able to fill that network fill that near network area. And I feel so confident now that we can actually execute on that.
Yeah, me too. And one thing, like for our investors, our team, that's all great as well. But also, you know how good it feels, or how confident I feel when I'm talking with Whistler, and I'm like, hey, guess what? I have a $15 million deal, and it's 10 minutes to all 3 properties from my doorstep.
Yeah.
So Liz loves hearing that, because then we go to the bank. And the first thing they ask is, how far do Tyler and Josh live?
Does a sponsor live in the area?
Well, guess what? I can get there within 10 minutes, and if it's 10 minutes or 40 minutes, doesn't really matter. But that's huge, because again, we're not looking in Florida, Georgia, Houston, or wherever, because how do I get there?
Right.
How many times have we had to be on site within 10 to 15 minutes? A lot.
Well, perfect example. Tell the story about the sinkhole at Valley Plaza that just happened 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, apparently there was like a line from the city that was going underneath our driveway.
Like a plumbing line, right? A sewer or something.
Yeah, the main, from downtown Cleveland, the main line that's going underneath our property. And then it was like caving in a little bit, then all of a sudden, like, it just falls in, and a car can go in an 8-foot hole.
Lynn was like, yeah, there's like a little bit of like a fist-sized hole in the concrete that needs to get filled.
Yeah.
And then, like, Alex, if we can find a picture of this, maybe add it to the YouTube video or something. It ended up being like 10 feet wide, 15 feet deep.
Put a car in.
You could put a car in. Yeah,
that's scary.
So if you're out of the area, let's say you're in California and you're investing in Houston, or you live in Kansas City or Chicago and you're investing in Atlanta, and that happens, you kind of just have to take your property manager's kind of word for it and hope they handle it.
Hope.
Doesn't always work out very well.
Hope they handle it. Yeah, I mean, that's just the difference with us. I would say we're very easy to do business with once you know us, but we're also going to be difficult to do business with if you're not executing and you're managing our
properties. Absolutely.
So, and I'm
absolutely.
I'm cool with that, because we have to be that way, because it's our properties, it's our investors' asset as well. So, yeah, I mean, in that situation, it could have been way worse. And we took care of it. I knew
Just got the bills like yesterday. Stephanie just put in the team. It was like $22,000.
You know how nice it is to be able to call up, my buddy, hey, unfortunately we have a crater that just came in. Do you go over there? Yeah, like if I'm in California or something happens out there, there's not a chance I would have that connection.
Yeah.
So again, it's just years and years and years of experience with meeting people that we've been able to develop something really great over the last, decade or so of experience in this resources, really.
Yeah. So there's some things working in our favor that, when you're underwriting a deal and you decide to enter a market, for us, the number one market we recommend to anybody to invest in is their backyard.
Yep.
Right? Now there's certain markets that are basically uninvestable. Like California is uninvestable.
Yeah.
Between the economics, the politics, the fires,
Everything.
businesses are leaving California, it's uninvestable. Seattle, same thing, uninvestable. New York, New Jersey, uninvestable. Some parts of Chicago, uninvestable, right? But for us, being in Cleveland, we were like, okay, Cleveland's maybe not the hottest, greatest.
Sexy.
Yeah. But it's our backyard.
Yep.
And then it turns out in the time of COVID of 2020, 2021, 2022, interest rates went down. Everybody was flush with cash. Mm-hmm. Everybody decides to invest in the Sun Belt. So Vegas, Arizona, Houston, Dallas, Austin, let's say Orlando, all those kind of gateway markets. Mm-hmm. The three big ones being Dallas, Phoenix, and Orlando. Now there's no doubt long term that those markets are going to continue to grow because the population is moving there. The politics and the economics have a lot of growth happening in those markets. Mm-hmm. But Cleveland last year was ranked the number one market in the country among all major metros for median rent growth. Mm-hmm. 7.4% growth. The average across the United States was only 3.3%. So our rent growth, now we force our appreciation, we force our rent growth through our improvements, but it's good to see the more macro market is growing at more than double the national average. So on top of the fact that we decided to invest in our backyard, now Cleveland is the number one market for rent growth. And in addition, Zillow just came out and said Cleveland is the number 3 market for house value growth, average house value growth. Now, obviously, houses in Cleveland are less expensive. They might be 300 grand versus in these other markets, they're 700 grand. But the average percentage of growth is number 3 in the market. And these other markets, these gateway markets that everybody was so fawning over after COVID, a lot of those markets now are seeing property prices going down.
Yep.
And a lot of them have negative rent growth because there's so much inventory coming into those markets. So maybe talk for a second just about things you've heard about the market, our market, those markets. And on top of the fact that it's in our backyard, we can get there in a moment's notice. Mm-hmm. It's easy for us to manage, as easy as possible. A little bit about picking markets, a little bit about betting on yourself, even when maybe the market like Cleveland was not the sexiest market to really be in.
Yeah, a bunch of awesome stuff there. So here's a few things that you gotta realize with Cleveland. If you want to rent throughout the United States, especially in those areas, the rent is so high. The entry into Cleveland is pretty much affordable for anybody, right? On top of that, with home values, they have grown and they're going to continue to grow, but we're not talking, millions of dollar home. Pretty much anybody can afford a home within Ohio, right?
Sure.
In Cleveland. Here's why it's happening, in my opinion, or why it has happened. COVID hit, right? So you got a bunch of people that live in New York, California, paying $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 of rent because their job was out there in San Francisco or Manhattan.
Sure.
So they had to live and work out there, right? Well, everybody's working from home, right? Or at the time, people were working from home. So guess what? I could go back and live at home or in a cheaper area like a Cleveland or somewhere in Ohio and pay a fraction of the rent. I'm not going anywhere anyway, so I just want to work from home. And then they do that. Well, guess what? COVID happened in 19, so you're 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. What happens in 5 to 6 years? every 5 years, people say your life changes pretty drastically, right?
Sure, yeah.
So those people that moved home, probably maybe got a girlfriend or a boyfriend, had a kid, right? So now what happens? People are moving to more affordable. They're still able to work from home. People are going to go back to work, and I'm an advocate of people going back into the office and seeing face-to-face.
I love the hybrid model.
Yeah, I love the hybrid model. But my point is that happened. People moved to have more affordable rent because they could. You didn't need the big flashy office, or you didn't need to live there, right?
Yeah.
So now that happened, and Cleveland starts to organically grow because there's more people moving here. Now I'm not even talking about Columbus, the new Silicon Valley, in my opinion, that's going on over there. So that's why I think things have really been growing over here, and it's just affordable, you know?
Yeah. And all the development, like you know how Cleveland is, like there's a lot of stuff going on downtown, because downtown, parts of downtown are in an opportunity zone. Especially the Riverbed, Dan Gilbert, the founder of the Cavs, Quicken Loans, Rocket Mortgage, all that stuff happening on Irish Bend and those kind of things. It's amazing. But they're building there, why? Opportunity zone. Then you have companies like maybe Redwood Apartments that are operating, and they're way out in like the tertiary suburbs. They're way out in Brunswick and Medina, Sheffield Lake, way out in other counties even. Medina County, Holmes County, Lorain County. And so it's created this kind of dynamic where there's all this development downtown. There's no development in the suburbs where we operate. And then there's all this development out here. And in the suburbs where we operate, where we love to buy things, where we're pretty much the #1 buyer in the market, there's no new development to compete with. There's nothing for us. Like, nobody's building some brand new apartment complex at scale that's gonna be charging $1,200 a month in rent.
Also because it's a little expensive
to
build an apartment building right now, right?
Sure.
So the inventory is, people are building downtown, right? But that's just
luxury, high end.
Yeah. So if you think about like, all right, well, who's building a workforce housing affordable apartment building right now? I don't know anybody doing it, right? If you're building something, you're charging $3,000 a month in rent. So what that does is it's a little bit lighter inventory, but it's still affordable. So rents are slowly going to be going up as well.
Yeah.
So it's just a unique time. Right
Speaking of rent, like we were talking about a deal earlier today, right? So I was at a functional medicine clinic, getting blood work, urine tests, checking out all my levels, and making sure I'm healthy, like that's the one thing that you have. You want to make sure that you're healthy, take care of your wife and kids and family and the whole thing. There's really two things, right, that take down businesses: divorce and health, right? A successful, well-run company like ours, divorce and health problems. Some of our competitors, right, stopped buying buildings because they had an executive that had health problems or even passed away, and that company stopped buying. So anyway, I'm there, I'm talking to the guy that owns it, who's an investor with us, and he says, I was looking for another duplex to buy. And I'm looking for a property, and I see a duplex in Brooklyn, Ohio for $300,000.
Love Brooklyn.
Love Brooklyn, right? $300,000. It's a duplex. And each side of the duplex is the realtors like put this amazing marketing package together and all this fancy words, and oh, by the way, it's been renovated, and they're getting $1,100 a month in rent. And then here we are. We own a bunch of stuff in Brooklyn, and we're continuing to buy in those markets. And we're able to charge about the same for rent for an apartment, like $1,200, $1,000. And we're able to enter that apartment complex at about $50 to $55 a door. So why do you think that has happened? Or what are your thoughts on residential versus commercial? And a lot of new investors, new entrepreneurs, or even people that own companies, like this guy owns a functional medicine clinic. He wants to invest in real estate, but if he paid $300,000, he would be grossly overpaying for the rent that he's getting.
Yes, he would be grossly overpaying for what the rent he's getting, but you're only spending $350,000 to buy in a market that is growing that anybody can afford, right? So yeah, the rent is a little bit low, rates are a little bit higher. Is he going to break even? Yeah, we'll probably he'll make some scratch too. I can't remember the numbers right now. Not a deal we would buy by any means, but the entry is still $350,000. You know what I mean? Which is still like super affordable for somebody. And I'd like to see that, because if someone's going to pay for a unit that's 2 times more than we're paying per unit, obviously the more units you buy, the more of a discount you get. I'm sure it's a finished product, which means it's renovated, it's plug and play, where we're buying a little bit more of a value add. But yeah, I mean, that's seeing that just in Brooklyn.
It's literally down the street from the building that we're buying.
Josh, I bought
buying a
30
single family
duplexes back in 19 in Brooklyn, and I don't think I paid more than $55,000 for 4 units. For 4 units, duplexes, all in Brooklyn. I love that market, right?
Yeah.
But right down State Road, which I put a video out about our newest acquisitions on State Road as well. So yeah, I mean, I love to see it, which tells me that people are looking for places to live. You know, they're actually moving in. That's probably he's buying as an investment property, but who's probably going to really buy that deal is an owner occupant.
Probably live in one side,
absolutely,
rent out the other side, offset the cost of their mortgage.
Think of Lakewood, right? 2013, first duplex I bought out there, or second one I bought out there, was 70 grand. Now then they jumped up. They're selling for $400,000 or $500,000. Rents were at $400. Now they're at $1,500. Old Brooklyn was at 60. Now I'm hearing 350. I mean, it's the same thing. What happened? There's no more inventory in Lakewood, so people are moving to the next best thing, right? If I told you 5-6 years ago that a duplex is going to sell for $350,000 in Brooklyn, you'd have said you're insane.
No way.
You're going to say you're insane.
No way.
You know, so that's awesome to see. It's great for our market. You know, that means people are anchoring in, and yeah.
So T, we've talked a lot about like the market, about what's going on in Cleveland, and some of the challenges we've been through. We made this decision, right, to kind of focus on front of the house, back of the house, and all the upside of that. But we've certainly been through a lot of challenges, a lot of things that we've done wrong, things that we never saw coming. And part of the reason why we took a break from the podcast was to kind of straighten out some things and hire some people. So more on a personal level for you, and all the deals that you've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deals, thousands and thousands of units, everybody can relate to the challenges, right? And everybody wants to avoid the mistakes. So maybe for you, what is a recent mistake or a mistake that kind of sticks out in your mind? A challenge that you went through, and something that you think our audience could learn from, so maybe they don't make the same mistake.
I mean, all right, so it was 2014 or 15. I lived downtown. I'm young. I lived at the 9 at the time. I did not want to move at all. My girlfriend, who's my wife now, wanted to buy a duplex.
You've been with Angela a long time.
Long time.
What's up, Angela?
Yeah, what's up, Angela? She wanted to buy a duplex. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I haven't owned a single piece of real estate. Had nothing to my name. So wet behind the ears. And we go to buy a property in Lakewood. And long short, I ended up homeless, right? That was probably the most humbling thing that
How did that happen?
Yeah, so it was the most humbling
I don't think I've heard this story.
So it's crazy. So it was a normal not a normal transaction. The seller was an attorney, and he was an agent, representing himself, and we had a real estate agent. That was all right, but he clearly didn't do his job. And we found a house that we wanted, we bought it. Well, we had a normal contract. They were supposed to get the tenants out prior to, the sale. The agent that we had, again, I have zero experience, and so did my girlfriend, my wife at the time, my wife now. And we meet the guy at McDonald's to go get the keys. He goes, "Oh, here, just sign this release form." I go to the bathroom. Angela loved the house. She was super excited. She signed the paper, right? So then I signed. I'm like, "Oh, you signed?" So I signed. I didn't even read it. No big deal. At this time, I'm jammed. I moved out of my apartment downtown. I'm living with Angela's apartment in Cleveland Heights in a 1-bedroom apartment. Everything's jammed up in there. So we get all excited. We're going, it's moving day. Let's go move. Pull up. No one's out of the house. There's people
still occupied?
Oh yeah, cookout going on, the backyard, everything. And I'm like, what just happened? We're homeless. I had no house to live in. Everything I owned is in the back of
Apartment's out. You're already moved out of that.
Completely.
You're literally pulling up to move in.
Yeah, we were homeless. And that's when Airbnb just came out, so we were able to find an Airbnb or whatever. But at that moment, I personally told myself, I go, I'm getting in this industry because if this guy can do it, and he's that big of a, quite frankly, a scumbag to rip us off, that I want to get in the market, I want to make a difference. And my wife became a real estate agent 3 months later after that because of that situation. But yeah, no one really knows that. I mean, when you're there, you're like, okay, what do we do? Not even about what do we do. What the heck do we do to get them out and get, our home back? So I had to pay the people to end up leaving.
Or just got cash for keys?
Yeah,
like it was the keys you
it was
guys
a lot
hold out?
amount of money. I mean, he just re-signed the lease like 4 days before closing behind our back.
Oh,
Yeah.
you should love that.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why. But yeah, that was probably one of the most difficult times getting into the market, realizing where a lot of people at that time would have just quit. They would have said, I'm out, I'm not buying real estate, but it like motivated me a little bit more because I failed. It was my fault and I needed to fix it. So yeah, what about you? What was one of the most difficult things that, you getting into the market that you had to overcome?
Yeah, it's almost embarrassing to say this because I've been in the business for a long time. But, I started wholesaling. I was a financial planner, wholesaling because we wanted to make money with no money, right? No cash, no credit. And then I got sick, and then we started, flipping houses and all that kind of stuff. And then all the way into almost 2017, 2018. I've been in the business now for 12 or 13 years. And remember Ricardo that used to work for us, right? Construction.
Yeah.
So we were kind of half pregnant with apartments. We already owned, we were doing co-syndication and raising money with other investors, buying buildings with other partners. We had our fund, we were raising money for that. Had about 25, 30, 40 million in the fund, lending that out. And you were kind of doing some things on the side. Glenn was doing some flips on the side. I was doing some flips on the side. And I bought an amazing 2 properties in Rocky River. And this is when you kind of realize like you're good at certain things and you're not good at other things. So I had trusted Ricardo to hire a contractor to renovate this house. It was on Whittlesey Avenue in Rocky River, which now is an amazing, amazing house that's probably doubled in value. Mm-hmm. But I remember like running all these companies, I trusted Ricardo and this other contractor to get the job done. Like give them draws, make sure things are done. Give them draws, make sure things are done. I never really went to the property. Ricardo was one of our employees, right? So I was like, yeah, it's almost done, it's almost done. Finally, I went there, and I remember because it was in the fall, there was a Ohio State football game on, and I went there on a Saturday night, was just kind of driving through Rocky River, going to dinner with my wife. We pulled into the house, and I walked in, and the house was a disaster. Like we were converting 2 bedrooms into a master bedroom with a luxury bathroom. We were opening up the kitchen, we had to add pillars. They had added 3 pillars instead of 2. And it was a nightmare. And here I was like an expert in real estate and all over all the social media platforms and doing live events and sending out emails about what an expert I was. And I thought, I trusted the wrong people. Mm-hmm. And so we fired those guys, take the house, we take it over, we get it finished with a different contractor, we get it on the market, sell it, and we actually lose money. Mm-hmm. So a couple of things happened. Number one, it was right when COVID hit. So it was the perfect Airbnb. Mm-hmm. It was the perfect Airbnb. We started Airbnb-ing it, and it turned out there was a city official from Rocky River that lived on that street. So he started seeing all the traffic coming and going, people moving in and out. And he sends us a cease and desist that says Rocky River does not allow Airbnbs. So all of a sudden we're making money from Airbnb, but now I can't. So I have a house that I'm over budget. I have an Airbnb I can't do. I can't rent it out for what I need to break even. So we end up selling it. Sure enough, about a year later, with COVID going on, all prices start to skyrocket. Mm-hmm. And now I think I sold that property for $325,000 or $350,000. It's probably worth $500,000 now. And so I made every mistake in the book. But what came out of that is so important to our business today is really learning and realizing what you're not good at. And I'm not good at the back end operation of the business, this front of the house, back of the house. I'm not great at construction or construction management or picking out fit, finish, and material and organizing it all. And we've been so fortunate. We had Tim Roth for a while, and now Dave that we've brought in, and they're so good at that. And we have these executives now on our team. I don't know if I would be willing to kind of give up the reins and give up on certain parts of our business unless I had totally screwed it up first, right? Like, and that's why I think like, okay, an expert like in Glenn in financial management, Roberto as a CFO, Dave with construction, Jason with property management, potentially bringing in a new president of property management, allowing Jason to move up more into that COO role. We're interviewing asset managers. I had a great call yesterday with a woman who used to work for one of our competitors. And now, like, those lessons of building a team, I definitely would not be good at it and wouldn't be so aware of it if I had not made so many mistakes in hiring the wrong people.
Right. And that's how you learn. I mean, nothing's perfect, right? And it's not even about like making a mistake and yeah, it's humbling, it's embarrassing, it's whatever, but now like it's not happening again.
Yeah.
That's what makes, you know, a good leader, a good entrepreneur is it's okay to make mistakes, just don't do it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have the same, leadership with our team. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to take risks, and that's fine. But just don't do the same thing over again.
Yeah, but there's so much we can talk about that we can go on and on. We're gonna be releasing for all of you guys watching on whatever platform you're watching on. Tyler and I now are committed to running this amazing show, running this amazing podcast, just sharing all of this knowledge that we've built up over 20 years really of investing, and bringing our team onto the calls and basically giving you all this information, this back-end insight into all the things that we do, from construction management, property management, asset management, finance and accounting, building teams, leadership, entrepreneurship, the mistakes we've made, picking markets, all these amazing topics. And so if you enjoyed the show, there's a couple things we just need you to do that we'd like to ask you to do. Number one, subscribe to the show. Whatever platform you're on, subscribe to the show so that you get notified every time we release another episode. So subscribe. Number two, follow whatever platform you're on, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you click the follow button so again, you get notified so that comes into your feed. Number three, share. Like, share this with whoever else you think could benefit from this. I was in the doctor's office this morning, and it's up on the wall. It says, the greatest compliment you can share with us is a referral, right? So anytime somebody shares this, like, subscribe, and share, it's almost like a referral. We appreciate that a ton. And then where people can find us, right? So our main website, freelandventures.com.
Yep. And our Instagrams, you can follow us on LinkedIn, TikTok, all the social media platforms. And another thing that I just want to mention is if there's anything that you want to hear us talk about, tell us, send us a message, DM us, because we would love to kind of get some more topics that people want to hear us talk about and our experiences and how we would handle it. We're open to that as well.
Yeah, we'll put that all in the show notes, all those links, the email, you can send in your questions. That'll help us create great content for you on a future episode. So the last piece of this is that we're doing now twice a week, we're doing live coaching and training calls that you can plug into. Whether you're an active investor, whether you're a passive investor, or both, or whether you think you want to be an active investor or a passive investor, you're not sure what to do, we hold a wealth call twice a week. You can register for that for free at freelandwealthcall.com. Jump on that call. We'll walk you through some case studies. We'll walk you through what it's like to be an active investor, what it's like to be a passive investor, how to evaluate deals, how to project returns, things that you need to know not to do. And then we can help you through a one-on-one strategy session, kind of chart your course. Do you want to be active? Do you want to be passive, or both? And you can get that for free at freelandwealthcall.com. Jump on one of those live calls that we do twice a week. We'll step you through it, and we'll help you along your journey. So thanks so much for being here, guys. We can't wait to release all this amazing content to you on whatever platform you're on, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget.
See you guys.
Be daring. Go make things happen. We'll see you next time. Take care.